Woo, that was exciting. Okay, so here's what I want to do. Rather than going over one of the examples on the sheet, let me show you guys an actual example, all right? So I'm going to show you guys a quick little 8-minute video. You guys may remember I've mentioned Steve Trotter a couple times. So let's watch the Steve Trotter thing. So Steve Trotter, as you will see by watching the video here, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawers, I think people say. His friends are apparently even less smart than he is, and they do something stupid. So we're going to watch the stupid thing they do, and then we're going to discuss why the stupid thing was stupid. Okay? Nobody dies, but 2 of the people get hurt very, very badly. Okay? There are no blood and guts. You're not going to get squeamish or anything. It's not, Chainsaw Massacre or anything. Yeah. So here we go. So. Sharknado. Good. All right. So the video is actually 2 parts. We're just going to watch the first part. If you want, I posted a link to the second part on my website, but I don't think there's anything instructive by watching the second part. So to get to it, just go to Honors Physics Videos, go to Work and Energy, and Steve Trotter. We're just going to watch part 1. It's 8 minutes. Part 2 is another 8 minutes. But there we go.
Whether it's to conquer fears or face a challenge, there's something that drives the human spirit to go farther, faster, higher. We applaud exploration. We marvel at new records, and we wonder at those who keep trying to push the edge of the envelope. But the folks who do it just for the thrill of it, well, they're a curious breed to the rest of us. You're about to meet a thrill seeker who's determined to do what no man has done before and is about to learn just what can happen when you go too far. Here's Bob McEwen.
What is about to happen here on the towering Skyway Bridge outside Tampa has never happened anywhere. Oh!
Whoa! Get out of here! That adrenaline feel, man, that rush is just, it's like nothing I've ever felt before.
All right. Before it's over, this daredevil stunt will challenge the laws of Florida, physics, and basic common sense.
I didn't think a lot about the consequences. I thought the worst it would be is we get arrested.
5 people will hurl themselves off the bridge, lashed to a steel cable, swinging out over the water 20 stories below.
Right when you jump off the bridge, you hear, because that's a cable cut in the wind. You're shooting right up to the bridge.
But somewhere between the bridge and the bay, a risky idea would get a whole lot worse.
You could definitely feel that the angle of the swing had changed. The upswing had stopped. We were now going down. Gravity was pulling us towards the water.
Birdie, is this 3.5 feet?
It is just a few hours before the jump. So proud of what they're about to do, stunt organizer Steve Trotter has enlisted 3 camera crews to document the event. Dateline obtained this video from them.
I guarantee you a treat, Tampa Skyway.
Trotter's enthusiasm can be infectious.
1, 2, 3, push me.
35 years old, a veteran thrill seeker. He's a shoo-in for the Are You Out of Your Mind Hall of Fame.
Dig it. Know it.
Trotter made his first big splash a dozen years ago, plummeting over Niagara Falls in a barrel.
Like an elevator with no cable.
The barrel, there it goes. There it is! There it goes! It's back! He beat the falls again with a female friend in 1995. Though this time he couldn't beat the cops. The pair was arrested and fined more than $10,000. But Trotter's true talent seems to be jumping off bridges, big ones. Right in front of the authorities, he spent this day dangling from San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. He spent the night in jail. That spawned more bridge jumps, with his brother off the George Washington Bridge in New York, with 2 friends in Tampa off the Skyway Bridge. But each and every one of those things we just described, jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, the George Washington Bridge, the Skyway in Tampa and Niagara Falls is illegal. Right. It's against the law.
It's against the law, but I made that decision to do it, That's my decision.
And Trotter's decided his trademark will be what he calls the pendulum swing. Here's how it works. In New York, he and his brother tied themselves to a cable anchored to the bridge, then leapt together, triggering a pendulum effect, swinging back and forth at breathtaking speed. But it's the Skyway Bridge, rising almost 200 feet above Tampa Bay, that's proved an irresistible lure for Steve Trotter.
2, 3, push.
He did the pendulum swing here with 2 other jumpers in 1991. And Trotter vowed his next jump from the Skyway would be the most daring of all.
I wanted to do a 5-man pendulum swing. I wanted something higher than the Golden Gate. And there it was again, the Tampa Skyway staring me in the face. I go to Tampa, I'm just hanging out one afternoon, I'm like, yeah, I can do 5 people off that bridge.
Has that been done before, to your knowledge?
No,
Anywhere in the world?
No, no way.
And you're about to find out why.
Am I still wax, John?
Sporting a new mustache and ponytail, Trotter has recruited his 4 closest friends to join the stunt. Like him, all but one are Fort Lauderdale bartenders. Kenny Bunker is one of them.
There's only one way to go, and that's right over the edge.
Bunker was on the crew that pushed Trotter over Niagara Falls, but he's never actually jumped off a bridge himself. For some reason, he didn't think anything could go wrong.
I had a really divine feeling. I just did not feel it was my day to go.
Another jumper, Lori Martin, was Trotter's partner in the barrel at Niagara Falls. But before this jump, she seems unusually quiet.
This is, I think, it's going to be the last one for me. I can't promise, never say never, but...
I don't know if she really wanted to do it. But I asked her, I go, sweetheart, are you sure you want to do this? You know, I can get someone else in your spot. Oh, I want to go, Steve Trotter. I go, you sure, honey? You know, she goes, yeah, I want to go.
Oh, hey!
Glenn Rahm and Jeff Sargent round out the 5-person team. Just minutes to go. With the very equipment they'll use to leap off the bridge, some of it purchased at a local hardware store just hours earlier, they listen as Trotter gives his final instructions.
Cable, on the 3rd belt, when it levels out, I'll go 1, 2, 3, and just swing it. You'll have the rush of your life.
Insisting he's more cautious than crazy, Trotter claims the stunt was carefully planned. So how well did he test that critical steel cable, their lifeline?
People will say this to me. Did you test it, Steve Trotter? I'll say, like, what do you mean? How did I test it? Do you want me to jump off with a couple blow-up dolls and with filled up the cement and test it that way? Will that make you happy?
When you're going to jump off the Skyway Bridge from a couple hundred feet with 4 of your best friends, is it not a valid question? Did you test it?
Yes, it's a valid question. But no, I did not.
Steve Trotter didn't test that cable because he thought he had everything all figured out. The combined weight of him and the other 4 jumpers was 900 pounds. The cable, which was just like this one, is guaranteed to support 1,400 pounds, so no problem, right? Wrong. What Trotter didn't consider is that at up to 80 miles an hour, the force of gravity and the G-forces at work on that cable would be a lot more than 900 pounds. The crucial question would be, how much more? It is 7:30 p.m., 0 hour. The jump team nears the Skyway. If there's a lack of planning, there's certainly no shortage of camera crews. Trotter has 1 in the air, 1 on the water, and 1 on the bridge next to him.
Pull right over. Pull right over here. Stop.
They stop at the highest point, 20 stories up.
Hey, John, is this
They have to move fast to beat the police.
Go with it, go with it, go with it!
If the cops catch them, there'll be no jump. Wearing his own helmet-mounted camera, Trotter unspools the cable. Within seconds, the stage is set. The jumper's ready.
Check your harnesses. Check all your harnesses.
It's a lot of responsibility
It
on
is.
your shoulders.
Yeah, a lot. Like I said, it's incredible responsibility on my shoulder. I mean, you have 5 of us now, not just 2, not 3, 5. And you don't want anything to happen to these 5 people. 1, 2, 3, go!
They clear the bridge. The cable whips them out over the water.
When you jump off, it's like, whoa, this is great. And all of a sudden, that noise, they didn't know what that noise was. I knew what that noise was.
And it was?
It was the worst. They're going fast towards that water.
5 friends now fighting for their lives. The dramatic conclusion to our story when we return.
Survived? All right, so the second half of it, so yes, they survived, like I said before. 2 of them have broken necks. I do not believe either of them were paralyzed miraculously, although I'm not sure about the girl because she doesn't, interview, and they don't say a whole lot about her except that she also had a broken neck. But at the beginning of the video, I don't know if you noticed, there was that one guy who had this black thing around him. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah, how do you break his neck?
So that was a neck brace that when you break your neck, they literally bolt it to your skull. Like there are bolts in his skull, keeping that on his shoulder so that he can't move his neck. So I don't know how long he had to wear it for, but I know it's temporary. So most of the second half of the video is just footage of them like trying to get out of the water and into the boat. There's one scene of one of the police officers that shows up at the crime who shows up at the scene, and he basically just says, if any of these people had taken high school physics, they wouldn't have been dumb enough to do this. So let's talk about why you shouldn't do this. All right. So I did a little research, very minimal, but just enough to kind of figure out some stuff about the Tampa Bridge, or the what do they call it? The Skyway Bridge. It's 430 feet tall. So picture a football field and a half flipped up on its end. Okay. So here's the bridge. You might want to draw this. So here's Steve Trotter and his friends. Here's this creepy mustache. All right, so they're holding onto the rope. The rope is tied to the bridge, or cable. I keep saying rope, and then they swing down, right? So to be clear, the rope that breaks, the cable that breaks is the cable they bought. It's not like one of the, it's a suspension bridge, so it's not one of those cables. Somebody last hour was confused about that. Okay, so there's our drawing. So I'm hoping that the conservation of energy connection here is fairly obvious, right? What are they doing? As they swing, they're converting gravitational potential energy, right? And because they start out with a lot of height, right? As they swing, they lose height and gain velocity, right? They lose gravitational potential energy and gain kinetic energy, right? And so the obvious question would be, well, how fast are they moving at the bottom, right? So every problem is going to be set up like this. You're going to be given the following information. So I might, if this was a problem on a worksheet or something, I might say, Steve Trotter and his dumb friends jump from a bridge that it has a height of 130 meters. Okay? That's about the same as 430 feet, just converted. Okay? Assuming that they jump from rest, then what is their velocity when they reach their lowest point at a height of maybe 10 meters above the water? Didn't they say what? What's wrong, you guys?
Oh, didn't you say it was 200 feet tall?
I'm not sure what he said, but when I Googled it, it said 430 feet. So I heard him say 20 stories.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be like the thingy's 400 tall? Like the tower? I doubt the roadbed is that high.
You might be right. Now that I think
that
about
would
it.
be like really high.
You could be right. You could be right. All right. So it turns out that it doesn't matter. They're screwed regardless. All right. For reasons that I'll get to in a minute. Well, here. All right. So let's check. Now I'm curious. Tampa Skyway Bridge. Oh, you're totally right. Clearance below 174. Nuts! Curse my feeble brain. All right, well, let's go back and recalculate it then. That's no big deal.
No, I already did it.
Ha ha ha! That would explain why my velocity came out so big. What did I just say, 174 feet? So times 12 divided by 39. So 53 meters. Thank you. I apparently should have done my research more carefully. All right. So, So how close do we want to make him get to the bottom down there?
5 meters.
Hit the water.
Hit the water.
All right. Somebody said 5 meters. That's cool. Let's do 5 meters. Okay. It really doesn't matter. None of this matters because they were hosed for reasons that will become apparent later. All right, so is everybody good up to here? All right, cool. So, in order to figure out the velocity at the bottom, let's see if it'll let me do dual page. Ooh, no, darn it. For some reason over break, our version of Smart Notebook expired and it doesn't work as well as it used to. Okay, so the whole premise then is this. Our total energy at point A has got to equal our total energy at point B. Everybody okay with why that's got to be true? Yes. Only two forces are gravity and tension, but the tension is perpendicular to their motion, right? Okay? So that means that the gravitational potential energy at point A plus the kinetic energy at point A has got to equal the gravitational potential energy at B plus the kinetic energy at B. So let's see, the gravitational potential energy at A, that's their mass, which we don't know, although they did tell us they have a combined weight of 900 pounds. Usually I don't give you that information in the problems, right? So let's pretend for a minute we didn't know that. All right, so mass times G, which is 9.8, times the height at the top, which is 53 meters, plus the kinetic energy at A, which is 1/2 the mass, times 0 squared. Equals, at point B, the mass times the acceleration of gravity times the height, which we decided was going to be 5 meters, plus 1/2 the mass times the velocity of B squared. And with those new numbers, I don't know the answer. All right, so let me pause for a minute. So first of all, does everybody kind of see that this is that same format that I was talking about before? Look, there's 4 variables, right? There's 2 heights, a height at point A and a height at point B, and 2 velocities, a velocity at A and a velocity at B. We know 3 of the 4, right? So you're just finding the missing one, right? Follow? Okay. So, and then I guess one other quick thing we can do before I solve this, what do you guys notice? The masses cancel, right? Okay, so let's see, 9.8 times 53, so you get 519.4 equals 49 plus 1/2 the velocity at B squared. So subtract 49 from both sides, that gives you 470.4 equals 1/2 the velocity at B squared. So times 2, square root it, and that gives you like 30.7 meters a second. Which makes much more sense with the 80 miles an hour they said. I'm really embarrassed. That didn't occur to me, that was way too high. Okay. Everybody cool with how we did the calculations then? All right, so really, like if there are problems on worksheet 6.4 that you struggled with, they're solved just like this, with the exception of number 5, which we'll talk about either in a few minutes or tomorrow. Everybody good? Great. Okay, so let's take this information and see if we can figure out why the rope broke, or why the cable broke. Okay, so to do that, here is the idea. So when they get to that lowest point, so here's Steve Trotter. For some reason I can't draw mustaches. All right. So the idea is this. The video told us, it says the combined weight of Steve Trotter and his friends is about 900 pounds. All right, but for us, since we're doing physics, we need to convert to metric, right? So if you convert this to kilograms, this turns out to be about 409 kilograms-ish, which is a weight then in newtons of about 4,008 newtons. Everybody good up to there? All right. And then the video also tells you that the cable that they bought at Ace an hour before they jumped off the bridge, Ace? ACO? What's it called? Ace? It holds up to 1,400 pounds, right? So they're hanging out at the hardware store, and they're like, let's see, we have a combined weight of 900 pounds, so as long as our cable can support that much, we're good. Oh, this one's 1,400 pounds, we're all set, right? No. So, why no? That's what we need to figure out. So before we do that, let's do our conversions. So if you use dimensional analysis and convert this, this turns out to be about 636 kilograms, which if you then convert that to newtons is about 6,236 newtons. Cool. All right, so when they get to that lowest point in their swing, gravity's pulling them down with a force of negative 4,008 newtons, right? Because that's what our force of gravity was here. All right, so here's the deal, you guys. Look, if they had just been hanging from the rope, like just like this, they would have been fine, right? Because 900 pounds would be my force of gravity. The tension force would be 900 pounds supporting it. Everything would be good, right? But the problem is the net force on them is not zero, because they're not just hanging at a constant velocity of, in this case, 0, right? What else are they doing? They're swinging. Is their velocity constant? No. They're changing directions, right? That rope needs to slow their downward motion and begin their upward motion, right? So it's got to pull up with extra force to stop the downward motion. Does that make sense? Okay, what's the name of the force that causes that change in direction, you guys? Centripetal force, right? Isn't this part of a circle? All right, now this is the first time we've done circular motion like this, where it's spinning, I'm going to call it windmill style, as opposed to helicopter style. You know what I mean? Okay, so in this case, the motion is a little bit simpler because the gravity is sort of perpendicular to the motion. But here, gravity complicates things, right? Because at the bottom, gravity is working against us, and at the top, gravity is working with us. So the effects of gravity change things a little bit here, okay? But even so, here's what I know. Oops. I know that when they get to the bottom, I know gravity is pulling them down. What's the name of the only other force acting on them? Tension. All right? And these two forces combined have to result in the proper centripetal acceleration, right? All right, to be clear, at this bottom point, all of the acceleration is centripetal. You're not, at that point, you've stopped speeding up, but you haven't started slowing down yet. So there's no change in speed there. All of your acceleration is the change in direction due to centripetal acceleration. Follow? So, centripetal force is mv squared over r, yes? So, let's see, their combined mass, we said, was about 409 kilograms. The velocity that we found a minute ago was about 30.7 meters a second. Don't forget to square it. Divided by, is the radius 53 meters?
No.
Yeah, the radius is 48 meters, right? You guys see why? Here. This is 53 meters, right? This is 5 meters. This is our radius. Follow? So our radius is 48 meters. Anybody got a calculator? I'm guessing it gives you right around 8,016 newtons. If we had not rounded it all, it would have. But I don't know. Let's see what we get. 30.7 squared divided by 48. 8,030, darn it. All right, rounding messed us up a little bit. So I'm going to give a little wavy equal sign here. If you do this without any rounding, it turns out it'll give you exactly 8,016 newtons. All right, let me pause for a minute. Are there questions on what I just did there? Okay, so the reason that I know this is supposed to be 8,016, and I went through the calculations with my AP class today in the third hour, it turns out that the mass here doesn't matter, the radius doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that before they swing, they begin at rest and the rope is horizontal. Okay? It turns out in those circumstances, anytime you release a thing and let it swing, when it gets to the bottom, no matter how long the rope is, the centripetal force at the bottom will always be exactly twice the weight. So I knew their weight was 4,008 newtons. That means the centripetal force has to be twice as big. So that's why the graphic that they showed, there's that little weight there, and it said 900 pounds, right? And then he said, due to the G forces and other things that I don't understand, the force gets much bigger, and they show it getting to 1,800 newtons, right? Okay, so twice as big, right? Good. But no, all right? Because what they tell you is they say that that's the force acting on the cable, and that's not right. This number here, the centripetal force, is our net force. That's supposed to say net force equals. But if I do this. So this is our net force. That's what our forces have to add up to. So if my net force is gravity plus tension, then, let's see, my net force is 8,016 newtons. Gravity's negative 4,008 newtons plus tension. How do you solve it? You add the 4,000, and you actually get 12,000 newtons, right? So the tension isn't twice as big, it's actually 3 times as big, right? Because you've already got this plus that twice over again, right? Follow? Okay, so why is that bad? Well, let's see. The tension force here is 12,000 newtons, 3 times their weight. Where is it? And what we decided was this. They weighed 900 pounds. The cable can support 1,400 pounds, but what they really needed is something that could support 2,700, right? So yeah, geez, they were way off the mark, right? Okay. Does that make sense, you guys? All right. So I guess the big thing that I want to make sure you guys understand here, well, 2 things. One, just as a side note, that the tension in the rope is determined not just by their weight, but also by the acceleration that that tension has to produce. Cool. All right. Now, if I lost you a little bit on this last chunk, I wouldn't worry about it too much. For the purposes of this chapter, what you need to understand is how I got this velocity down here. All right, and every one of these problems works the same way. It's always just setting total energy at one point equal to total energy at another point and solving for the one missing variable. Cool? All right, so if you did not have 6.4a done today for one reason or another, do it tonight. Bring it in tomorrow, and I'll give you half credit. Okay? Tomorrow, I will go over number 5, and then the rest of the hour will be yours to work on 6.4b. All right? Tomorrow, I'll also have the review sheet for the chapter. That'll be due Monday. I'm going to pass it out tomorrow just in case we don't have school Friday.
Are you going to work? 5 on this one?
Say that again?
Are you going for 5 on this one?
On A tomorrow, and then the other one probably Friday. Good?
Yeah.
All right, good, you guys?
Yeah.
Actually,
You know I have to do it.